Hi, welcome to a fun trip with Microsoft Flight Simulator from Queenstown on the South Island of New Zealand up to Auckland International Airport up on the North Island. So here we are, parking stand 5. We're going to do cold and dark, get this thing brought to life. So let's get into it. So initial cockpit checks. See the thrust levers are idle, parking brake is set. Engine condition switches are off. And wipers are off. 27 volts on the batteries. External power. Okay, overhead panel. Clear oxygen supply on. First flight of the day, CVR test. No lights up here. Initial reference to align. The emergency exit lights. And again, first flight of the day. So APU fire test. And the engine fire tests. A quick check for the all of the bulbs are working as they should. And they are. Okay, come back to the overhead panel later. Just turn the lights up on the displays. So we can see what we're doing. The real weather in South Island is pretty grim. I normally fly with real world weather active, but I'll make an exception today because otherwise all you'd see is cloud all the way out of Queenstown, which sort of defeats the purpose, really. That would cross the threshold of being realistic to the point of dullness, so I put a bit of wind and some gusts in. But at least we'll see some scenery on the way up. Okay, just get the flight plan synced onto the electronic flight bag here. No METARs for Queenstown. But I have a real life iPad just next to me and I've had a look at it, so we're good to go there. Alright, I think the first order of business is we've only got 25 minutes to push back, so let's get the fuel sorted out. We need to take block fuel of 7515. Okay, that's the refueling commenced. Just have a quick look over here. Yes, you can see the fuel quantity going up there. Okay. I think actually before I do the MCDU, let's get the bags on as well. Just say we're a bit pushed for time. I'll get the catering sorted as well. I'll get the passengers on. Here comes the belt loader for the forward cargo hold. Okay, let's crack on. Get the weather. And here it comes. Operations. A little thermal printout. Which was stuck forward as the throttles for reference. Okay, that's correct. Just checking the weights in the flight plan here. Bear with me a second. Yeah, that zero fuel weight is a bit high. It's got 2 tons sitting there we shouldn't have. Well, let's run with it. Let's keep an eye on that gross weight, though. We should be a takeoff weight of just over 70 tons and a landing of just under 67 tons. Anyway, let's hit the flight plan up. You notice I didn't activate a SID out of Queenstown. The reason for that is I'm using the free version of SimBrief for the flight plan, and the ARAC cycle does not align with the latest version, which is sitting in the actual base simulator. So I've got a few waypoints just to slap in, which will just take me about 30 seconds. So we need to go to Gixel. then EPDEX, which is basically the current SIDS for heading north in real life. Okay, let's get that in. Then EPDEX to ACMAD. Almost done. Known and that should be us good on the departure. Yes. Okay, good. And here's the star into Auckland. So, okay. We'll have a look at this later for top of descent calculations. Righty-ho. I'll put in the Queenstown VOR, just for reference. And there she is. Okay. How's that fueling? That looks like we're done. Yes. So zero fuel weight showing 69 tons. Yeah, it should be 62.8. I think this might be a known issue in the simulator at the moment. That should correspond with the original flight plan, the operational flight plan. So, but it doesn't. So I'm going to ignore it. That'll be a flaps one takeoff. Will be it. The runway at Queenstown is somewhat bereft of tarmac. That is to say, it's not the longest in the world. So I'll be using a toga takeoff today. That doesn't mean I'm dressing like the characters in Animal House. But I'll be using maximum thrust, takeoff go-around thrust. So when we launch, pushes levers all the way forward rather than to the flex detent. Okay. Let's get our V-speeds in. Transition altitude at Queenstown is 13,000 feet. That's where we switch over to standard Barrow. Oh, it's hard to read in the sun there. What's the QNH? 1020. This is the approach into Auckland, just setting up in the system here. It's a bit warmer than yesterday. It was 15. I'm not in New Zealand. I'm in Hong Kong at the moment. A beautiful day here as well. Okay. 290 at 4 knots. You'll notice I'm landing on ILS runway 5. The reason for that, we're going to be landing with a very small tailwind. But the reason for that is because I can't be bothered to do another flight plan in SimBrief. Transition altitude is 15,000 feet for Auckland. And Cat 1 ILS. What's the clouds? Good visibility, 10 kilometers or more. Scattered 3,000, broken 3.5, overcast 4,300 feet. Okay, 200 feet. Okay, we don't need to worry about that. How are we doing for time here? Okay, we're not doing bad. Alright, I'm just going to have a quick look at the flight plan on the navigation display on the captain's side. So I put the constraints on. Set up our stop altitude for the climb, initial climb. Barometer here is 1008 hectopascals. Yeah, there's a problem right there. Okay, I don't want to overfly the Queenstown VOR, so I'm going to take that out straight away. But I will, on departure out of 05, take this waypoint here. It's basically runway heading to 4 nautical miles. If I went direct to the Actam fix, it would take me through the mountains, and that's not a good thing. Okay, so let's just carry on with this. Okay. So there's a waypoint there called Ahmed. It reminds me of that that skeleton puppet thing. You know, the terrorist skeleton. When it goes, silence, I kill you. And then this start of the star in Auckland, 5,000 feet, 240 knots. Okay. And as I mentioned, we're coming into runway 5 right with the 4-knot tailwind, which is of no consequence whatsoever. What is very concerning is the gross weight on this jet. We should be taking off with 70.1 tons. Oh dear. Yeah, this may not work. So V2 speed is 148. I'll take 11,000 feet and I'll expedite the climb as well once we are off the ground. All right. Maximum takeoff weight 79 tons. Well, we're legal, but that shouldn't be the weights. Okay, so back to the overhead. The passengers are on, so without further ado, strap in. And put the beacon on. I'll just tell people not to approach the aircraft because it'll be starting up very shortly. Fuel pumps on. Start the APU momentarily. So the fuel is balanced. Okay. I'm just starting the APU, Captain Sully style. Hopefully it won't be ditching in the Tasman Sea. Alright, let's crank the engines and get out of here. How are we doing for time? We pushed back on time, exactly on time, pretty much. 2 minutes elapsed since we pushed back, so... Oh no, this is inoperative at the moment, but old habits. N2 rotation in the engine core. EGT rising and fuel flow is happening, which is good. That won't work until we're pressurized hydraulically. The barking dog. PTU pressurizing the left side hydraulic system, that's all that is. Again, N2 rotation, fuel flow, light off. And N1, that's the big fan at the front of the engine, starting to rotate. Wonder if that's Gandalf up there. Got a cousin down in Queenstown, actually. Never visited. Once his COVID restrictions actually let us get out of here without quarantining for 3 weeks upon return. It'd be lovely to do a camper van trip and do the vineyards in South Island. Okay. Okay, we are all set. Let's go. Better make sure I don't take an early turn onto the runway here, because that pavement with the hash marks there on the right is not load bearing. I think it'll take 4.5 tons. I don't really want to bust the concrete there. Not that it would in a simulator, I'm sure, but. Alright, just hold here for a second.
Flight attendants, please prepare for takeoff.
Okay. Let's go. Lights on. So, yeah, a short backtrack on the runway required here. It's nice scenery, isn't it? The silver fern of New Zealand looks spectacular on the livery there. Never tell a Kiwi that it's a feather. Okay, let's stop there for a second. Okay, it's Toga takeoff. We have no SRS runway because we do not have ILS at Queenstown. Spoilers armed, cockpit door locked and secure. Flaps are set. Engine to norm. Should have done that earlier. My bad. Okay. I'll put the strobes on now. The idea with auto setting is that the strobes will activate once the weight is off the wheels. There we go. We are all set. %, N1, stabilize. Chrono start, toga thrust selected. Man toga SRS climb, auto thrust blue. 80 knots, cross check. Come on baby, fly. You heavy Hector. V1 rotate gently so we don't alpha floor this. And straight into autopilot. Press climb set. Acceleration. Speed check, flaps up. RA call out. Climbing to green dot speed for expedited climb. Right here. So the plane is flying at the moment. I've told it to take expedited climb. You can see there on the flight mode annunciator. And that tells the aircraft to hold the green dot speed, which is the best angle of climb. Obstacle clearance. I can see Gollum's cave from here. Normally from here would be cleared up to, I believe, 25,000 from Queenstown. And I've put that back into managed climb mode as we're over the terrain by some margin now. So you'll see the speed increasing now from green dot up to 290 knots. 10,000 feet. I was going to say I'll keep the seatbelt signs on, but let's get the lights off first. Yeah, the reason I hesitated about the seatbelts was because the real world weather is atrocious. But it looks okay. Obviously, I've read the OFP if the winds aloft. Not. All just good fun. Recommended cruise is 36.8. 13,000 feet, that's our transition. So onto standard barrow now. Just enjoy some views for a minute. That's quite stunning, isn't it? I think I'll have a sip of coffee. I don't think that coffee cup would stay there on that takeoff. Okay. I'm just looking for 45 nautical miles from Queenstown, then we'll start the climb up to cruise. That's one of the notices on their SID charts for aircraft flying at FL 260 or above, which we will be. I wonder what's on the in-flight menu today, or maybe some good old-fashioned Kiwi fashion chaps. Oh. Could do with a full English breakfast actually at the moment. Feeling a bit hungry. It's lunchtime in Hong Kong while I'm filming this. I'm starting to think about food. this information I'm keying in here is just to determine the braking mode, the automatic braking mode, which is here, low or medium for the landings. So I'm just taking some data from the Auckland charts. Wow. So I'll be using medium auto brakes. Okay. That reminds me, a friend of mine was working in Christchurch a few years ago, and he was there when the big earthquake hit a few years back, and he was actually in that building that pancaked right in the central business district. That'd be scary stuff. How's our climb doing? Pretty slow. So what's happening here is the aircraft's flying at the 290 knots, which will convert to Mach shortly, another 1,000 feet or so. But it's holding the our speed, but with a modest rate of climb. Bit of a headwind here, not bad. Okay, Savler at 6 tons. Let's have a look. Yep, fine for fuel. Getting a bit closer to wine country, Blenheim and Marlborough Downs. Let's see, how far away are we from a good bottle of Sauvignon Blanc? That's the Woodbourne VOR, yeah. That's Blenheim, basically, on the top of South Island. 190 nautical miles. So hopefully we'll get a good view of Mount Egmont today at the southern end of North Island. Hopefully it'll be spectacular. I'm in two minds whether to just leave this video up on YouTube as one just long video without any cuts or edits, or whether I cut it into two or add in some fancy boarding music or cabin chatter or things like that. I haven't decided yet. It's really more of a test because it's actually the very first video I've ever done using a microphone, and it's also the first video I've ever done of an Airbus A320 fly-by-wire mod or any plane for that matter, with the exception of a little video I tested. Really was the purpose of it, about Cessna 208 Grand Caravan flying in Laos in the Air America livery off some of the old Vietnam era jungle mountain airstrips. That was fun. It's had a few views now, but yeah, go easy on me if you're going to bother to watch or even bother to comment. This is my very first time, basically. I'll put some real flying videos up. I'm not an Airbus pilot, but I like to mess around in GA planes when I can, which isn't very often these days. No, I usually fly in Thailand. I think airspace in Hong Kong. The flying is ridiculous, the fuel is extortionate, but yeah, the airspace is so limited with even now the busy international airport. It's not really doable. You're better off in Thailand. You've actually got somewhere you can fly. Okay, so Loughter intersection. How are we doing on time, actually? 0036 UTC. So UTC is 13 hours behind New Zealand. And let's see. What's our actual ETA? 21:58. So under an hour from now. So 37 minutes since we pushed back, 26 minutes since toga thrust was applied. That stopwatch there, by the way, when I hit the chrono, when I advance to throttles, it's really just to check on the how long the toga thrust has been active for. Because if we lost one engine, I would try and keep the toga thrust running as long as I possibly could. Alright, limping up to cruise. Alt star mode. Mark mode. I'm just watching now what happens with our airspeed, ground speed, particularly, and the engine N1 and the fuel flow. Looking good. That's 2.2 tons of fuel per hour burn, 1100 a side, plus or minus a bit. Okay. Yeah, we've got a 7-knot headwind. I don't think it's worth climbing up that extra 100 feet. Ah, let's do it anyway. Why not? Yeah, it's not really doing anything for our ground speed or the wind at 100 feet, but of course didn't think it would. I've only ever done a flight in the cockpit of an A320 years ago. It was a Lufthansa plane. That was just before 9/11 and all of that. It was on the jump seat behind the captain on a flight from Frankfurt down to Venice in Italy, and that was spectacular. Flight over the Alps, absolutely stunning. But I remember the captain; he was fiddling with his chair settings, all the time, up, down, forward, back. This thing here in the middle. I don't know if anyone's been bothered to wonder, but it's the eye position indicator. So the idea is from this side, you want to have the orange dot covering the white dot on the right, and vice versa if you're in the first officer's side. Yeah, it means you've got the optimal field of vision, particularly for landing the aircraft, and also you don't have to, physically move your head to read the main instruments. That's all that is. But yeah, this German captain, he was bouncing up and down in his seat for a good half hour. Yeah, you can see the seat settings there, look. So once you find your optimal comfort zone, you remember you're, in this case, a B7, yeah, for your seat, and for the pedals, that's the current setting, forward or back. So, what's our top of descent? Let's have a look. "92 nautical miles. So when this gets down to about 93, 94 nautical miles, distance to go to this fix, then I shall initiate the descent. And I'll use vertical speed mode to keep it simple. Okay, I'm going to shut up for a minute or two and show you some views. Very rugged landscape, South Island. Beautiful. However, the coast I'm flying over is, if I remember my old geography teacher, the west coast of New Zealand is one of the wettest places on Earth, and if you think the northwest of Scotland and the northwest of England is bad, you should check that out. That's where the emergency exit ropes are for the cockpit crew. There should be a placard on there, I think. I was watching a YouTube video the other day about I think it was Sichuan Airlines flight up in China, mainland, and the heating element in the first officer's windshield, which is somewhere down here, actually arced, and because of the see, the windscreen's quite warm and the outside air is cold. In fact, right now the outside air is 56 below in Celsius. His first officer's window shattered, and he was using his lap belt, not the shoulder harness, and he was pulled right out of the his side of the cockpit, where there's sort of upper torso hanging out, and the violence of the depressurization was so strong it actually ripped off this panel here, the coaming up here. This piece literally just ripped off, and the captain, obviously he'd have been a bit alarmed, because as the cockpit depressurized, this door's designed to have it's designed to control the flow in a sudden decompression, and the door actually opened with such force, it swung open and smacked into the circuit breakers on the panel here and knocked out half the systems. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, the captain's sitting on the left side and his emergency oxygen's back here. So imagine he's holding the joystick there with his left hand, but he couldn't get his right hand over to the oxygen mask to get that out, and he was at full cruise altitude, I don't know, 35,000 feet or something like that. And they were over high terrain as well. It's amazing he didn't suffer hypoxia and crash. But amazingly, the plane got down in one piece. It's on YouTube. Up until then, I think the only case of people being sucked out of a cockpit was the British Airways, I think it was a BAC 111. And it landed, I think, in Bournemouth, Herne Airport, I think. Seem to remember. But the poor captain had been pulled out so far from his side of the cockpit that I think the purser or one of the cabin crews had to grab onto his ankles all the way down. Good grief. That would be scary. Looks like a large quarry, I think. Yeah, speaking of Auckland, I downloaded one of the free scenery packs for the downtown area. But the airport is actually south of the city, so I'm not sure if we'll see any of the towers downtown or not. In case anyone's wondering about the settings, it's I'm flying in 2K. It'll be recorded. It'll be compressed rather for YouTube at 1080. But the settings are all ultra except air traffic, which is more or less non-existent in the sim at the moment. It's been worked on. And I have the LOD down to 200 instead of 400. Apart from that, everything else is ultra. The system is a mid-range one. It's, what do you call it? RTX 3070, yeah. I think 16 gig of RAM, 1 terabyte SSD, 2 terabyte HDD. I can't remember what the processor is. As you can tell, I'm not the most PC geek there is. I might just be a geek for trying to figure out how to fly an Airbus, but you know, some people collect stamps, some people play with train sets. So hey. I've been mad on aviation since I was a kid. My very first flight was a Vickers Viscount from probably Aberdeen or Edinburgh, I can't remember, up to, or maybe Wick, up to the Orkney Islands, where my dad's family's from, and I remember being terrified but hugely impressed with the sound of the turboprops and those big yellow-tipped propellers turning just outside the window, the noise and the... Back in the days in the 70s when flying was glamorous, the captain used to come out and give all the little kids these like a kind of electroset kind of toys to play with and keep. And then since then we did flights on the Britain Norman Islander, again on the sim route, basically Wick up to Kirkwall. That was a lot of fun. And little did I know it, years later I'd end up jumping out of them for fun. I've got just under 100 skydives. I gave up years ago. You know, wife, kids, mortgage. I used to jump at Strathallan in Scotland, and occasionally at Errol Airfield, which is now shut, and Headcorn in Kent. Headcorn being the most recent jumps, yeah. Well, I've flown a lot of miles since then. The longest flight I ever did was Hong Kong to Dubai and on to Rio de Janeiro, and 3 or 4 days later all the way back again. Oh dear, that was a long way. I think that's the longest trip. But I've been around the Pacific, been around the world a few times. I used to live in the States, Southeast Asia, Middle East, UK obviously, as you can tell by my accent. It's beautiful alpine scenery there, isn't it? Ah, there's the coast, so approaching the top of South Island. How far from the vineyards? 62 nautical miles over to the right. So Sebru intersection is, or waypoint rather, is over the Cook Strait. Captain Cook, he was a famous Yorkshireman from Whitby, I think. Whitby in North Yorkshire, which reminds me of the an old TV sketch years ago. It was called Yorkshire Airlines. I think it was on a show called, it was either Hale and Pace or The Fast Show. It was one of that type of kind of fast-paced sketch comedy shows, and I said, "Welcome on board Yorkshire Airlines. Wipe their bloody feet." You know, and throwing mushy peas at the the passengers. The killer was the captain. His yoke was a like pulling a pint in a pub. So he had a glass of beer under his yoke and pulled it, and out came a pint of Yorkshire bitter. And then he announced over the PA, he said, "Welcome on board Yorkshire Airlines. We don't bloody go anywhere because there's nowhere else bloody worth going." I'll have to look that out later on. Probably to cheer myself up when I realise the sound levels on this video are terrible, or I've crashed a plane in Auckland or something. Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier the real weather, which I was hoping to use for this video. It's just so irredeemably awful that all you would see is just a thick layer of clouds. Would have been a bit boring. At least we can see a bit of something down there. In terms of controllers, I'm using a Logitech something or other. I nicked off my son. It's the Extreme 3D Pro. So when he went off to uni in England, I rummaged through his cardboard box and found this, dusted it off, and it's okay. It's very ergonomic, but the thrust is quite tricky to use because I'm using a thumb wheel basically to move these engine thrust levers, and the travel on that thumb wheel is about maybe a 1/4 inch, so it's a little bit tricky. I might mess this up when I land if you see me going into or coming out of reverse and then suddenly you get bells and whistles. It's because the thumb wheel the travel is it's just not realistic enough for this sim, really. But if I'd be bothered, maybe I'll check out the prices of one of these, throttle quadrants. But I'm saving up for VR. I think that might be my treat to myself at Christmas. I'm in two minds whether to buy now or wait another year. It's really coming into its niche now, VR, and it is incredible. I've tried it once or twice, friends' houses and families' houses, but I'm hearing good things. My friend Rob's got the HP Reverb G2, and he says it's amazing. I'm in two minds whether it's, they might just bring out a Reverb G3 in 8 months' time. It's twice as good and half the price. I'm in two minds about that. Hence flying in 2D today with a flat panel monitor. Let's just see what's happening with that wind in Auckland, if there's any change. Wow, 040 at 8. You're kidding me. That's perfect. Yeah, finding a good full English breakfast in Hong Kong is not so easy these days. For those of you who know Hong Kong, the institution, the flying pan, has closed because of COVID for good, which leaves you with Staunton's all-day breakfast, which is pretty good, or Chinnery's in the Mandarin Oriental, which is excellent, but quite pricey. Yeah, you can just make out the waves from this altitude. Amazing, huh? By the way, the slight stuttering that you see when I'm doing these external views, it's not actually anything to do with the PC, it's my mouse is somewhat geriatric. I got a brand new mouse with the new PC about 4 months ago, whatever it was, and for some reason I couldn't really get it to work very well, so I might dig it out and have another go. This old mouse is getting a bit rubbish. This old mouse is getting boring. This old mouse is getting old. Okay, 177. So we're going to be top of descent shortly. How's our fuel? 4.7 at Sebru, basically. With 2.7 burn. So yeah, what's 100 kilos between friends? It's perfectly fine. Let's just start a quick look at the descent profile after the this waypoint. So 5,000 to 3,000 with 3 minutes distance. Okay, no problem. Then down to 2,600 for the final approach. Perfect, okay. Can't see Mount Egmont yet. It should be somewhere off my 11 o'clock, I think. Yeah, I think it's here near New Plymouth, so yeah, it should be somewhere about 11 o'clock off my side here. Let's see. It's kind of one of those classic volcano shapes, you know? Like Mount Fuji in Japan, which, if you ever get the opportunity to go there, I can highly recommend it. I think we'll probably see something in a minute or two. This here's North Island coming up. Okay, no significant changes there. Okay, next thing will be the top of descent then. And then things will start to happen reasonably quickly. You can see all of this stuff here on the nav display is the pink bits are the constraints for the waypoints at the airport and the ILS, all of that's here basically. Which reminds me, yes, okay, we have it now. In fact, I think I'll choose Auckland for the VOR station. .168 nautical miles to run to the actual airport. Okay. So, getting closer now to this fix. It'll be interesting to see how close we cut it. You know, obviously the whole point of doing the top of descent planning is that you move the engines back to idle thrust in a descent, thus not burning fuel, or not very much fuel. And you reach that fix at the predetermined height without cruising along for 10 minutes burning fuel at that altitude in thicker air. Oh, that's pretty cool. Look, there's a little airfield down there. Can you see it? So I'm just going to get ready now, set this up without activating the descent. Oh, there's Mount Egmont there. Can you see? Roughly in the center of the screen there. It looks like a kid's kind of ideal version of a volcano, doesn't it? The classic cone. 360 degrees. Anyway, I better start thinking ahead here, get ahead of the plane. As they say. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the ATC properly working, you know. I'm not sure I've got the inclination to go onto VATSIM, the live ATC for the simulator. Maybe. I'm sure people will say I should, but... Or maybe they say I shouldn't go anywhere near it. More like... I'm just watching this distance marker tick down. Yeah. So, let's start it at 94 nautical miles. So we're doing, what, about 8 miles a minute. Yeah, give or take we are, yeah, about 8 miles a minute, yeah. Okay. Almost there. Of course, in a real Airbus, you've got a top of descent dot on the nav display, but this is pretty close, I think. Okay. So you can see the thrust rolling back there. And we're on our way down 2,400 feet per minute. You can hear things have got a bit quieter outside the jet, obviously, as the thrust levers have gone back. Yeah, I'm very impressed with the scenery in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember the old Atari consoles in the late 70s, early 80s with the ping pong game. And at the time, that was the height of amazingness. Now times have changed. I wonder what people will think of this flight simulator in 40 years' time. Just imagine. Well, so far I might get away with not bothering to edit this video at all. It's going okay so far. Just monitoring that descent now. Okay, so we're now 74 nautical miles from the fix. So 30,000 feet, so 25,000 to go. So about 10 minutes. Wow, look at that. Yeah, you can see my mouse, it's kind of under a bit of tension on the cable as well, so it just suddenly you see it snatch, you know, kind of like little snatches. Stop it. There's Towringer. I've got a mate there. He runs runs at least part, if not all, of the container terminal there, the shipping container terminal in Tauranga. Yeah, the airport in Auckland is sort of south of the city, so we'll see if we see anything anyway. Wow, look at that. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't use real weather. We'd still just be seeing clouds otherwise. That's beautiful. So it's approaching midday New Zealand time, so yeah, it looks great. Alright, things are starting to happen here. First order of business is the setting the altimeters back to QNH at 15,000 feet. Well, in real life, you know, I mean, the ATC would probably clear us down already, you know, to an altitude, and then we just flip on QNH. Brake pressures and accumulator good, so we're going to have good braking action if we stomp on the pedals. The plan is to let the aircraft stop itself, basically. In fact, I'll arm those now. Just dump the spoilers just to help us out a little bit here. Yeah, it'd be quite good to play something Kiwi, like, on the soundtrack, if I'd bother with one, you know, like Crowded House or something like that. For sure, the sound levels will need adjusting so we don't blow our eardrums watching this on YouTube with the engine So, okay, 10,000 feet below 250 knots. Looking for 5,000. Got the spoilers out just to help us down. As you can see, we're at thrust idle already. Okay, we should be at 5,000 feet in good order. 8 miles. It's about a minute flying. And we're about a minute 40 seconds away. So yeah, it should be about bang on. Okay, we can kill the spoilers now. Make sure they're armed.
Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.
2,500. 2,500.
Good. Glide slope and localizer are captured. Well, a localizer almost. Still on lock start. Here we go. It's just aligning now. Six miles to run. And capture. Gear down. And flaps full. Speed check.
$1,000. $500. 400. 100 above. Minimum.
Continue.
100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 5.
Speed reducing. 80 knots. 70 knots. 60 knots. 40 knots. Flaps up.